G'day guys, Mac with the Outer Circle, and today I'm going to talk a little bit about the critiquing that is done on this channel. So, recently I've done videos talking about a myriad of new releases and some Heresy stuff, and some things I wish they'd do with Heresy, and some things they're not doing with Heresy. And no matter what the tone of the video is, I always get these comments that say, especially on the Warhammer Fest one, that it's all negative. This channel is only negative, okay? Now, this is not a defense of negativity, this particular episode. But there's a few things I want to point out because there seems to be a bit of confusion. I want to try and clear it up. And that is the how and why I do things a certain way. So, first of all, that Warhammer Fest video, about 40 minutes long. It turns out if you go through and you actually dot point everything out, it's about a 50-50 split between the things I liked, the things I didn't like. And there's sort of I guess more of a 40-40 split, and there's another 20% in the middle there of stuff that I'm pretty... I don't care about one way or the other, we'll say. However, the main takeaway for people is the negativity. Now, if you want positivity, and only positivity, there are channels that specialise in that. Like, the classic example people will go to is Chapter Master Valrak. Now, I wish I had his positivity. It's kind of genuinely great that he's so enthusiastic about it. So good on him in that regard. And if that's what people want, maybe his content might suit you better. But if you come onto my channel, and a miniature is really good, I tend to not go too in-depth about it. So I'll run you through a couple of examples. I'm going to use this Captain in Phobos armor here. If I see this miniature and I think it's good, I'm probably just going to quickly state that, hey, I think this is good, I really like this. I might point out one thing in particular about it. I might say, I like the way that they've incorporated the servo skull with the little screen on it. I think that's a really neat little feature. Now, that might be something I say, but then I'll move on, and that'll be the end of the process. If I'm mixed feeling on the miniature, I might say that. I might also pick out a negative thing. I might go, you know what, it's a bit silly how it's kind of just touching up against his leg. Couldn't have been a separate thing glued onto the edge of the base. I don't like that stylistic choice. Okay, I don't need to do it, but that's something I might choose to do. Now, where it gets difficult is if I don't like the miniature. Because if I don't like the miniature, there's a few ways I could go about it. So one of them might be to just say, I don't like this miniature, and move on. If I do that, people will go, why don't you like that miniature? And I know this because it's from hard-earned experience that that's the response I'll get. So then I have to start to go into and explain something a little bit more in depth. I could say, well, this guy's supposed to be some kind of stealth or scout unit. So ignoring the fact he's got his bright blue armor and that his cloak doesn't even go over the top of his backpack, which defeats the purpose of having a cloak at all. He's also got things like this reliloquy hanging from his belt buckle or from one of the straps to his sword scabbard. That thing's just jangling around, nothing tactical about it. Now, I could go down that route. The minute, though, I start going down that, people say, oh, well, you're nitpicking. Yeah, well, I kind of have to, because if I don't nitpick the miniature and point each of these points out, then people go, oh, well, there's nothing to worry about. And in the instance of this miniature, and I only chose it for the purposes of this video, I have nothing for or against the miniature. It actually falls into my I don't feel about it one way strongly or another category. I could make a video that goes for 1 minute, and I'd show this model and go, I like this model. Alright, thank you all for watching the episode, and I'll see you all next time. There's no content to be created there, nothing generated. If I talk about this model and go, look, I don't think this fits in with the established Astartes aesthetic, I can't just leave it on that point. This happened the other day when I spoke about the Sisters, and I said, look, they don't fit the established Sisters aesthetic, and I pointed out 1 or 2 points and moved on. Bad mistake, because then the comments section became full of people saying, oh, why doesn't it fit the aesthetic? Well, I've done video after video in the past talking about stylistic choices in Warhammer, especially in Warhammer 40,000. I did a big one on Legion vehicles and Marine vehicles in general, where I said, like, look, this is Imperial technology. This is the way vehicles are designed and shaped, and the way they position their guns and turrets, and all these things add up together. And that's great if people go and watch that video for context about why I'm coming at something from a certain direction. The problem is when people are new to the channel, or haven't watched it in a while, or they're only a casual watcher, maybe they don't like me and they just stumbled across the channel, who knows. But they come on and they see the critique and go, oh, I don't think this fits the Marine range. They usually will leave a comment to the effect of, why? I think it fits just fine. And well, then what do? Do I go and respond to each and every one of the dozens of comments I might get saying that same thing on a video? No. It's impractical of me to do so unless I'm going to just cut and paste the same answer to everyone, which I think is a bit disingenuous. So instead what I have to do is I have to go in, I have to break it down, and I have to talk about something and nitpick it in depth when really I shouldn't have to. So a great example of this is I'll open up the Warhammer community. And this is pointed out on another channel, but it's something I went into in depth, and the person agreed with me, right? But that's not the point I want to get at here. I'll just go down and try and find the particular one I'm after. Alright, it'll be the Day 5 reveals. Alright, I pointed out this image and I said, hey, photography, like marketing 101 and product placement 101, these guys, the big models shouldn't be out the front, okay? Now, I could have left it at that. I could have said, you know, put big things at the back, little guys out front. But that's not enough for a lot of people. So you've got to act like every person who's watching the video, this is their first exposure to the channel, to the hobby, to this kind of critique. And so even if I actually don't think it's a strong point or a point I really want to emphasize in the video, I'm sort of feel like I'm forced into having to go down that route. So I might say, okay, clearly what you've got right here, it doesn't work. You can't have the big models out the front, the little guys at the back, because the big models are out the front, then all the detail they have is front and center, but then all the other miniatures lose their detail because they're too far back in the frame. You need to reverse it around. So the big miniatures, which have lots of detail, some of that detail still shows through with them at the back, and the small guys are given their chance to shine and stand out at the front. If I don't go into the process of explaining that, then people don't get the full takeaway from it. It's very easy for me to turn around and treat everyone as if they know everything that's going on at once and understand exactly what I mean, which is I could look at this image and go, yep, small guys at the front, big guys at the back, and leave it at that, okay? But I can't do that. I've got to explain where I got the idea from in the first place, what my actual criticism is it for that product or for that decision, that design choice, whatever. And for many of the things you see on this channel that have very long-winded discussions on them, it could be what I think of Ghazghkull Thraka's model, okay? That I think had its own video from memory. Him and Ragnar, and I spoke about how they got these weird positioning of their feet on rocks and such. Really, in my head, in real time, when I see that, it's about 1 second, just a blink and you'll miss it. And I just look at the miniature and I go, huh, that's an interesting design feature, and I move on. In my actual real life, everyday, actual human personality, I move on, because it's not a big deal to me. But when it comes time to create the content, you have to explain this long-winded thought process that boils down to a blink of a moment thought, so that other people can see how you arrive at that conclusion. And unfortunately for this channel, the conclusion people draw from that is, hey, every single thing Macca sees is negative, and he has to go off on this big long tangent about why it's a bad thing. Well, this is unfortunately the situation we've ended up in. I don't actually feel that negatively about many of these releases. I don't feel like a heap of these things are worth more than a second's comment, if that. But unfortunately, we're in the situation where I have to do it, because if I don't give full context, people will say, hey, that's weird, you know, or why do you feel that way? I don't see how you could possibly have come to that conclusion, etc., etc., etc. And again, over like 5-6 years of having this channel, this is something I've learned the hard way. So Unfortunately for me, I have to go into long-winded diatribes to explain things, because if I don't, then I get a lot of questions I either love or loathe, or many of those sort of things. Take this orc on screen right now. I could just go, that's interesting, the way they've designed that. Well, I could hate it, whatever, and move on. But if I was to say, this looks really weird for an orc, and doesn't really look like the other orcs in the range, then people want me to quantify that. They want me to explain why it looks different. So I could go, okay, not only does he have this weird hair that's going in every direction, but for some reason it's really sharp edges and zigzaggy, and that's not how hair behaves. Hair is straight, or it curls, or it frizzes, but it doesn't form these weird hard right angles usually. That is a critique I could make of it. It's not something that actually appeals to me to create a critique of, and it's not something I think is worthy of creating a video about it, nor do I think it's content that's really worth giving to people. However, if I don't say something about it, but I say something about the model in general, then it opens the door to a bunch of questions. And so that's why we often end up with videos about something that I think is not important. Or it seems like I'm making a mountain out of a molehill. It's important enough that I feel like mentioning it, but then I've got to qualify what I've said, explain how I came to the conclusions that I did. And that's the pitfall. So you have a 40-minute video on Warhammer Fest where there's as many good points, like there's many miniatures where I come away from it going, I really like that, I like what they did with that, as there are me saying, I don't like this. But the problem is, I don't give them equal screen time, because the things that are good don't really need explanation of why they're good. And I think, most people would tend to agree as a community on what they think is good. A great example of that would be the Sisters unit, the Day 2 reveals. See if I can pull those up. Open this up. Don't let Twitch play. Okay, so these Day 2 reveals, these open up, and pretty much everyone's like, oh, these models look nice. Okay, it's sort of universally accepted. So there's not too much critique I can really provide there, no nuance, apart from saying, hey, I like them too, guys. I think most people are going to like these. Isn't that cool? That's it. That's the end of it. I could try and maybe explain why I think they're so cool, but at the end of the day, you're preaching the already converted. There's not much to be gained from it by saying, like, look, they've got more of an aesthetic where it says that they're going to go out and actually purge the people they think are heretics. They've got a very Spanish Inquisition vibe about them, with the leather over the armor, the Gothic armor plate, the little sort of wrought iron fence post type things that remind you a bit of a church on the backpack. Of course, the shields, which kind of look like the lid off a coffin. The mace is a very classic weapon. There's a lot of things you can potentially say about it, but most people are just going to go, yeah, we get it, the model looks nice. But if I come down to something like these Paragon War suits, I can't just, and I again know this from the hard experience the other day, I can't just say this is shit and it doesn't fit the rest of the range. Because then people go, oh, I think it fits just fine, it looks kind of like Sisters, I don't get your thought pattern. Then what happens is, that was exactly what I have in the comments. So I have to go back and I have to make further videos explaining it. Otherwise people just think, I'm an idiot or whatever, or they leave a lot of nasty grams in the comment sections, and especially the ones you guys don't see that either get private messages on Facebook or that the YouTube algorithm automatically hides, which is actually a huge amount of contents. And often a lot of stuff which has any links to outside pages, that often automatically gets hidden by YouTube. I have to go in and manually select those comments and approve them. And also if you swear too much, they do that. But anyway, something like this, I can't just say it doesn't fit the Sisters range. That's not good enough for people. So instead of being able to give models I like and models I dislike equal amounts of screen time, I have to qualify why I dislike this model. And then I go into a big, long diatribe. And it's not really what I want to be doing. What I really want to be doing is the content where I interview other fellow Heresy players, okay? Kat and I have both done these videos where we go and we look at Heresy armies at events, friends of ours usually, and we say, hey, you know, come chat to the camera, we'll ask you some questions about your army, and we'll show off some really cool models for people to show what people in the community are doing. That's the kind of content I love to create. Unfortunately, I just don't get to do it too often. A lot of it comes down to the fact, yeah, I am critiquing, criticizing, picking on, however you want to look at it, a multi-billion-dollar company. Oh, pity them. At the end of the day, who gives a crap what I've got to say at the company end of things? But I felt it needed to be done. And over the years, you know, I would do things like Games Workshop pricing's a farce. You know, there are many videos I've done on it, but people couldn't just leave it at, hey, you know, if I said taxes actually play very little part in how much they charge in Australia, or importing fees play very little part in it, that's not good enough. People will still say in the comments below, you have no idea. They never qualify it with actual proof, they just say you have no idea. So to prevent that or circumvent that, I then have to go in and add in all this additional information. I mean, it is important to source. Whenever you make a claim, it is important to source it. But I often find myself having to go over the top. And it means that, unfortunately, you build up a very solid reputation within the community. And one other little point I'll add in at the end of all this is the swearing. So, I'm an Australian, we swear a lot anyway, but people have to understand the difference between swearing for emphasis and swearing with intent to piss people off or drive home a different type of message. So often the swearing is just used to punctuate a sentence in a lot of ways. If I say, this thing's effing shit, it's not because I'm pissed off at it and I'm raging and I'm sitting there red-faced pounding the chest like Hitler in 1945 in the bunker or something as the Russians roll in. No, it's just there so that people sort of understand that on the scale of 1 to 10, this is a 10 on the dislike meter type thing. Okay, it's not that I'm actually raging about it or actually angry or any of that kind of thing. I'm usually sitting here with a very bored expression on my face when I record, I'm afraid. Trolling through a lot of stuff I'm indifferent to. I'm swearing because what I'm trying to say is, hey, I actually don't like this thing, and because you can't see my face, I'm speaking to you, I'm speaking to people who maybe English isn't their first language, a lot is lost in translation through this medium. If I was there in the room with you and you could see my body language and things like that, yeah, it might be a bit different. You know, I could do one of those things that some people do, put a little video up in the top corner showing my facial reactions to everything, but then you're focused on me, not on the thing I'm talking about. I prefer you to just be focused on the thing I'm talking about at the end of the day. So the swearing is for emphasis. It's so you can understand where I'm heading with something. I'm you know, it's just saying, you know, if I say this is effing good or effing bad, it really just means this is very good or very bad. It doesn't mean that I'm actually aggravated. But anyway, that's just a quick insight into the thought process that goes into these videos. Not really a defensive piece, it's just more of an informative piece from my point of view, where I'm just trying to explain to people how videos end up produced the way they do on the channel. It's not about presenting negatives and negative persona, although that often is the case of what ends up happening. It is not the intent of videos. The intent is to deliver information, and unfortunately, if the information that's being delivered is not, I suppose, positive information, then you have to tend to dwell on the negatives because you have to explain and justify every single position you hold near and dear, or even things you don't really care about, but you know someone else will and they'll bring it up and not let you forget it. I'm Mac with the Outer Circle. Hope you guys got something out of this, and hopefully it brings a little bit more nuance to videos I create going forward, and you'll understand just a bit better why I do things the way I do them. See you all next time.